Hi, Tara. We're just going
Hi.
to welcome to the Artful Leadership Interview Series. I'm really glad that you are here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about what's going on with you. So I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what's your role as an artful leader in San Diego?
Well, my name is Tara Graviss. Who am I? Wow, I'm a lot of things. Mostly what I would say is that I'm an artist, an expressive arts facilitator or therapist. I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive energetically. People don't usually know that about me. And I see a lot of private clients specializing in trauma. So I work with adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, people who've been sexually assaulted, people that have PTSD from other traumas, military, those kind of things. And I not only bring in my expressive arts therapy background, but I bring in my trauma-informed background. And very specifically for people who are working on reclaiming the self. Because oftentimes when we've experienced trauma, a little piece of ourself gets stuck, somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about adult survivors, it's a subject that many people don't want to talk about. And I think one of the main things that gets stuck or lost is the right to claim and own and live in our bodies, and to claim and own our own sense of ourselves and our sexuality, which is really a natural right. So I offer advanced support for people who want to return to themselves and their bodies and understand themselves as divine beings like we all are, and own or reclaim a sense of sacred sexuality.
Wow, so I love that you started with all of that, because I know you as a graduate of the Expressive Arts Institute and as the executive director at Arts for Learning. So I love that there's this whole other thing that you're doing as well. So, do you have like a name for that business, or is that just?
Yeah, the name of my private practice is the Art of Tantra.
Okay.
Because it's very specifically around, it's a melding of expressive arts therapy and sacred tantric practices. So it's both.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I love all that.
And then I'm also the executive director at Arts for Learning San Diego. That's what I do as my day job.
Yes. So you're a busy lady.
I am. I'm a very busy lady.
Yeah. So what's something that you are either feeling excited about that you're working on, or something that is challenging for you right now that you think would be interesting for other people to hear about?
Well, what's challenging is actually managing everything and balancing all the balls and keeping everything going. I think just my position at Arts for Learning San Diego is challenging. I mean, without life and all the other things I want to do. I think my impression is that having an executive director role or a leadership role at any nonprofit can be challenging. Nonprofits are not known for having an endless supply of resources. And so the good things, it makes you be creative. The challenging thing is that maybe you're not able to execute things as timely or to the level or, in the means that you might wish, because you don't have the resources, whether that's a monetary investment or human resources or whatever. I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah. And at that organization, you're working with a really large number of community artists, right?
Yeah, so just to give you, I don't know if this is helpful, but I've been here almost exactly 4 years now. And when I came on board, and I was on the board of directors for 4 years before I joined the
Okay.
employee. So I knew the organization, and I thought I knew it well. I was mistaken, but I thought that.
Totally different from the inside.
Totally different perspective. So we've doubled our revenue, and we've added about 22,000 people served in 4 years. So we went from a $650,000 budget to a $1.2 million budget, or actually just under a $2 million budget, and 55,000 served to like 78,000 served.
Wow.
So, and as a result of that, exactly what you just expressed, our roster might have been, 20 or 50 artists, right? And now it's well over 100. Sometimes, if you count the ensemble artists, which are multiples, with sometimes bands that are 10 people, we have over 200 artists on our roster.
Wow. And these artists are going into schools?
Primarily, we do some work in the libraries and community centers and on the military bases, but the bulk of our work is done in schools.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you were saying you're struggling with kind of juggling just that and then also this other work that you're super passionate about. So how are you doing that?
Not very well, I would say. We have a total staff of 8, including myself here. Realistically, I think we should probably have between 11 and 13 for the number of people we're serving. I simply can't do that right now.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. You can't just bring on, 5,000 new people at one time.
Right.
But I also need to have the resources to bring them on and sustain that. When I started working here, everyone that worked here reported to me directly. And there were only 2 employees, so it wasn't that hard. But I've managed to create a structure where now the programming people actually report to a programs director, right? And I'm just hiring a new accounting firm so that they can take on more of the accounting and, things like that.
Yeah.
So that I think my greatest asset to the organization is being out, being visible, talking to corporations, talking to potential donors, networking with people like yourself, out in the field, and not so much in the office doing, human resources and accounting and grant writing and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you being the voice of passion, of the purpose for the organization and connecting all the dots.
Right. I think that's probably my greatest asset for the organization. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of fun doing that when I get to do it. And I actually get to do it a lot more than you might think, because I'm out and sit on a variety of steering committees or boards or whatever. But then, no, I don't know why, but the email doesn't stop when you're out doing other things.
No, it doesn't.
Thinking it should, but it doesn't.
You need it on that.
So that just means that, in the evenings or in the weekends, I'm trying to catch up on email and either get things done or delegate, like everyone. I'm sure everyone has to deal with this.
Right.
And I'm actually at a point in my life where I'm very interested in having a balanced lifestyle. I used to, before I switched over to nonprofit 4 years ago, my background was in hospitality for a very long time. And so I worked a lot of hours.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
No, it's not that I don't like working. I just actually want to go in my studio and make art sometimes, or, go take my dog for a walk on the beach, or, like just normal things.
Spend time with loved ones and all those great things. Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you make your way into this whole arts education, therapeutic arts? What got you?
Yeah. So I'm a military brat, and we moved every 18 months, pretty much on the dot when I was a kid. I think I went to something like, I don't know, 14 schools. I've been to every state in the union before I was the age of 12. And I'm also an introvert by nature. So, and the military is awesome in the sense that you never move in the summertime to start the new school year, right? You always move like mid-year. So you're always that weird kid with the funny name at the front of the class, because neither one of my names when I was a kid were normal. And so the teacher would always have to say, hello class, please welcome Tara Graviss, which is not my name. My name is Tara Graviss. and I would sit in the back of the class and, I would draw a lot, sketch a lot. I've always been a visual artist. And especially when I was little, it was the way that the kids would kind of get to know me. So they would see my drawings and like them and say, can you draw that? Can you draw me a girl? Whatever it was, right? So it was kind of like my entree into the schools. And then when I got a little bit older, around adolescence, I started writing poetry as well. And I started using my artwork as a form of self-expression. And I honestly didn't even understand some of the poetry I would write or some of the images I would draw, but I just did them and it made me feel better. And I still have some of them. And when I look back at it, I realized I was processing a lot of things that were going on in my family. There's a lot of trauma. And then when I was, I guess, going from 6th grade to 7th grade, maybe, my parents allowed me to enroll in a community college painting class. And I was the only non-adult in the class. And I got a lot of positive reinforcement out of that. And when I was in high school, I got lucky and I got to stay in the same high school the whole time. And for my senior year, they didn't actually offer a senior art class, but what they did is they created one for me. And they allowed me to basically sit in the back of a different class and work independently. So all those things were really important to me in art, and I knew that they were helpful to me. And then I went out and, got my own therapy as a young adult and went to college and promptly didn't do any art for about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Because art was in many ways this really strange, convoluted source of pain for me. It was actually the only thing that my father ever complimented me on as a child. And so it somehow in my little child brain became tied to him. And every time I would try to make art, it was actually painful for me, emotionally painful. And then my mother died almost 9 years ago now. And when my mother passed away, my mother was a nurse practitioner. And, she grew up in the era when you went to go to school, you were either a secretary or a teacher or a nurse, right? Those are your choices as a woman. So she became a nurse and met my father on a blind date, and they were married after 6 weeks. And then she promptly got whisked away to all over where we lived. And she got pregnant with me while she was still in nursing school because she thought you take the pill when you're going to see your husband.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, and she dedicated her life to us. She worked graveyard shifts so she could see us after school. She was a nurse. She was a caregiver, like all the way. And when she died, it was really hard for me. And it made me think a lot about everything that she had given up in her life for us. And I didn't know how to overcome my grief. And so one of the things I did is I decided to live my life in honor of her. And what I meant by that was, even if I'm afraid, I'm gonna keep trying to grow. Even if it's hard, I'm gonna keep trying to grow. I'm gonna keep trying to be the best person I can be, to be of service to others, and to honor the fact that if I actually believe that by being my best self just for me, that's actually also in service to others. Yes. Does that make sense? Absolutely. So I believe that intellectually, and I'm in the process of owning that emotionally and spiritually. And
so that longing to honor her and to be your biggest and best self brought you back to
Mm-hmm.
the arts.
Yeah. So when I enrolled into the Expressive Arts Institute, found it, enrolled in it. Actually, I took the intro, and I've had an amazing career in my life. I mean, I'm super lucky. And I took the intro, and I walked away thinking, "Oh my God, this is who I am." Because I actually realized that I've been doing it without knowing I was doing it.
Right.
You know,
a lot of us felt that way.
Right?
Like,
and
this is what I've been doing. That's what it's called. Yeah.
So I enrolled in school, and I went back and got my master's, and it's been that way ever since. And I feel very passionately and very strongly about the transformative impact of the arts in any capacity, not just in a therapeutic setting. Like, I feel like having quality arts in communities is therapeutic and uplifting for communities. You know, it doesn't have to be in the traditional sense of I think art matters, basically.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And so I was going to ask you about that, and you already kind of went there of like, so as an executive director, that is such a different role than an expressive arts therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you keep connected to that passion for that, the transformative power of the arts as you're creating these partnerships in the community, or as you're overseeing these programs? It's a bit of a longer walk, right? From like that to like what's actually happening for the kids that you serve. So I'm just curious how you keep that alive for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of toggling in my job. So, having a lunch date with somebody who's potentially a donor is a different conversation than speaking to an employee that needs some counsel.
Yeah.
And talking to a teacher that's considering our programming. That, they're all very different conversations. So there's a lot of toggling on my part, and knowing who my audience is, who I'm talking to. But I think the thing that I have in the thread that's the commonality that makes it work is that I am deeply, deeply passionate about the transformative power of the arts and collaboration and how we're all in this together. Like, very specifically, I'm doing this for the kid. Like, these children are our future, and we can either assist them in being well-rounded citizens that have the resources they need to be self-advocating and contributing to our world, or not.
Yeah.
Right? And either way, they're still going to be the future of our world.
Right.
So, I don't know. It just seems logical to me that we might like to assist them in being their best selves.
Yeah.
It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. And the arts.
I believe that the arts is part of that.
Yeah.
And I also, sometimes we do different little activities here among the team sometimes, just to keep us grounded and focused on what we're doing. And I remember once doing an activity, and the activity was about, for which type of child are you doing this? Do you have a special affinity for, I don't know, kids in AP classes or whatever your thing is, right? And everybody shared. And mine really was, and it still is, the kids that fall through the cracks. And by that, what I mean is, because I was this kid, the kids that do really well in school, but there's actually other things going on that we're not seeing. Yeah. The kids that are silently suffering and not asking for help because they don't know that they can. Those are the ones that I kind of keep my eye out for.
And those are the ones that I think typically get the most out of those art offerings, right? Because it's the time that is set aside for them to reflect and express and create and have some control over what they're shaping and to be in their imagination and their feelings without having to expose themselves too much. And it creates this lifeline over time.
Right. It's like a little safety thread. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if necessary or if appropriate, hopefully it cultivates that to the point where if they need to ask, they cultivate the ability to ask for support or whatever. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, you're bringing a big passion to a big job, and that's amazing. So where do you continue to get your inspiration? Are there authors, artists, people in your life?
Well, I'm super lucky in that I'm surrounded by a lot of amazing, cool people. One of the ways that I check in and help myself remember that I must not be too bad is that I look at the people that are around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at, we have an amazing array of artists on our roster, but I also have an amazing array of artists that are friends of mine. Or other expressive arts therapists that are friends of mine, or people that believe in balance and honoring people's intentionality and conscious communication and nonviolent communication, and, you know, just different things, right? So I feel very blessed to be surrounded by a lot of amazing people. I don't, unfortunately, this is a cop-out, but unfortunately I don't get much of a chance to read much. Mm-hmm. I sometimes download books onto Audible and I listen to them when I'm driving long distances, but other than that, that's kind of where it goes. I do go to museums a lot when I can. I was just in Houston and got to go to the Fine Art Museum and see an exhibit by Susan Mann that was incredibly impactful, amazing, beautiful. And then I tend to primarily work in caustic work, but that requires me actually going to my studio and doing some actual work. And I haven't had the time to do that I would like to do, or I haven't made the time to hold myself more accountable. I haven't made the time.
Yeah.
And so nature is a big thing for me. And I often use just my cell phone as a way to capture the way that I see the world and the beauty I see in the world, which is important to me because I feel like there are many, you know, whether you're talking about the news or social media or whatever, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to see the ugly in the world. And I'm not actually adverse to that. Like, I actually believe that art is supposed to evoke something, you know, an emotion, and I'm not tied to it being, you know, quote unquote, a pretty emotion versus a not pretty emotion. I actually just think it's supposed to evoke. But I also think that if my eye sees something and to me it seems beautiful, that I like to honor that and capture that and share that. And some people might think it's beautiful and some people might think, what the hell is that? And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's I love that you bring that up because I follow you on Instagram and I see like your little photo things that you'll do where I'm just kind of like, I wonder what that is. Or like, you know, like you just have these really intimate little shots of these little things that you're noticing. That's what I'm imagining is happening, you know, as I'm looking at your photos and like just taking a moment to snap something and play around with it and get it out there. And so I'm curious, is that often where you're like sharing those little things?
Yeah. Mostly on Instagram. Yeah. It's just and I like that. I love Instagram because you don't have to explain anything.
Right.
You know, and I purposely, most of my artwork, my titles are very kind of ambiguous, you know, because I don't really want to tell somebody else what they're looking at.
Right.
I want someone else to go, I see, you know, whatever they see. And that's awesome. Great.
Yeah, and it can be kind of a fun practice where you're just snapping something. It doesn't take a long time. Where it's like, I mean, you're talking about being an encaustic artist. That's a process.
Yeah,
that's pretty involved. I just started doing a tiny bit this year, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, I don't know how I would keep on doing this because it's a lot of time, such a setup. So it's nice to have little practices of just being connected to how we're looking at things, how we're experiencing little things around us and sharing it with others. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So, who's your tribe? Who are the people that you would want to shout out? We're doing a kind of shout outs in these videos where we're recognizing people in our lives who have been there for us or who inspire us. I was just curious if there's an artful leader in San Diego or even outside of San Diego that you're like, this person I really appreciate today.
There's lots of people. You know, obviously Judith over at the Expressive Arts Institute, Erica, who you know from Little Yellowbird, is amazing. Kathleen Cienfuegos, who is a Mandela artist, but also teaches work in sacred sexuality here in San Diego with Bliss Life Tantra. Heather Magnuson, who does impact arts. She's a painter and uses some interesting methodology and basically captures the essence of another person through her work, which I find really interesting. So there's lots of people.
Yeah.
They go on and on and on.
I know, that's kind of been the conversation with a lot of people. And I actually love hearing that. And it's been really fun for me to kind of follow this thread because every interview that I've done has commented on somebody I've already talked to or somebody that I'm planning to talk to. So it's just fun to kind of weave this thread of interconnected community here that is working together to really make a difference in our community through the arts in so many different ways. And I love just following that thread and seeing new faces that I've met before but hadn't really connected with, you know.
Yeah. Have you heard of Alana Aritam?
No.
The photographic artist? I think she's amazing. I don't know her well, but basically what she does is she captures images of primarily African Americans and holds them in Renaissance style, and her photographs look like Renaissance paintings. I just think it's amazing. So she's a local artist that I actually don't know well, but I think that what she's doing is very impactful and change making. So
cool. Well, we'll have to check her out. Very cool.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap our conversation up, is there anything that you would like, let's see, I have two questions. One of them is, what would you like as far as connection or support from the community, whether that's for you personally, for your work at your organization or your private business? How can people get a hold of you? How would you like to connect with others?
Yeah, if it's for Arts for Learning, people can get a hold of me at work. No problem. The number is 619-282-7599, extension 111. If it's about my private practice, you can follow me on Facebook at The Art of Tantra. It's got information about my session pricing for expressive arts therapy or other. I think for the organization, for Arts for Learning San Diego, the number one thing that we could use support on that I'm focusing on is increasing our relationships with corporate sponsors and individual donors. We actually do an amazing job of being out in schools and getting paid for that. The problem is that doesn't cover the cost of an office. And we need one. And we run a very tight trim ship. So having that would really allow us to dive deeper into maybe research or evaluation or quality, all of which I feel very comfortable with. But that's just going to help us either replicate what we're doing or create deeper relationships with our partners. One of the things that we do that many people might not realize is that we actually offer every genre. So that's obviously more complicated than if we were to offer just a single genre. And we subcontract most other nonprofit arts programs in town. So on that roster of over 200, it includes like Holy Playhouse or, Full Globe or, so It's really a collaboration of partnership with the entire community to provide quality arts education to our students out in our public schools throughout San Diego County. So any support on individuals and corporate is probably my biggest thing that I could use support on at work. On a private note, on a personal level, I think, and I might be, maybe this is very unique to me. I think there's still a lot of pressure in our world for all of us to be everything. And I don't want to say just women, because I hope that's changing. But, there has historically been this tendency to be like, oh, you have to be, a caregiver, and you have to be a mother or a daughter or whatever it is, a wife, a friend, and a businesswoman, and, all these things. And for me personally, I've had more than one time in my life where I've had to remind the people around me that I'm a human and that I'm just doing the best I can, because I think 90% of the time I'm like a, for lack of a better word, I'm a baller, like I kick ass. And I think in that 10% of the time when whatever's going on in my life, because I am a human, I don't feel that way, or I'm not up to my par, I'm not up to the standard I hold myself accountable to. It's very hard for me. It's it's emotionally very hard, and to have people just be like just breathe, like you're amazing, like it's okay that you're a human being, and that maybe for this little patch of time in your life, you're, not going to do 5,000 things all at one time. Maybe you could just take a breath. Because I'm so busy being so uncaring for myself in my own little brain, that I can isolate. And it's good for me to have people say, we think you're doing great. 10% right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that message that you taking care of yourself in an impeccable way actually allows you to be a bigger gift to the world.
Right.
That's something that I have to work on too, is like, because I'm so driven by the need around me, and feeling all the feelings of everything that's around me, and then really recognizing I'm grounded and I am well sourced and resourced and taken care of, then I can be a vessel of something rather than feeling like it has to come from me because I run out. But if I'm kind of like a vessel or a source of this stuff, then differently. Yeah.
Right. And I think there's still messaging out in the world that tells us that we're being selfish if we take care of ourselves. And we don't always have, we sometimes forget to support one another in that balance, in that self-care. And I think it's vital. I think it's probably more vital in the work we do in both nonprofit or education or the arts, any one of those. And then you have, I work in like the combo of all three, right? Yeah. And we know our teachers, our classroom teachers are burnt and under supported. I mean, like all you got to do is look around, like that's obvious, right? We know our artists are being change makers and change agents out there, right? We know, something I talk to my team about all the time is them caring for them so they can support our artists and caring for our students.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was a big topic. I did the trauma-informed care and healing-centered engagement training for the SDC.
I know. Yeah.
I did a lot of talking about you are the source of everything you're doing in your work as an artist, as a change maker. And so you are your most valuable tool. Take good care of it, And we spent some time just drawing and reflecting on how am I doing, and everybody was just like, wow, we need to do this more often, you know. And
very much so. Yeah. Self-care is a big topic, I think, for all of our artists and our teachers.
Yeah, and I'm really curious of how we can create communities where we can do that with each other, for each other also, you know, because I think sometimes self-care feels like this thing I have to go do by myself, because when I'm around other people, there has to be this doingness that's going on, rather than like, how do we create spaces where we can be together?
Right. And safe enough so that you feel like it's okay to be you, and you don't have to take care of everyone else, you know, because I know in my world, it actually makes people uncomfortable when I'm not on my game all the way, because they're so used to me doing it, you know, so they get uncomfortable, because then they start questioning themselves and what does this mean if she can't, you know, like that kind of stuff. And I've had to go, yeah, I'm just not okay right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of like what you're saying. It has to be a paradigm shift, you know, of like our humanity and our experiences need to be welcome, and we can be excellent, and we can be excellent all the time, and we can also say at this moment, in order to be my best, I gotta go far.
Right. Yeah, or whatever it is. Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. I need to take a walk around the block. I need to, go sit in nature for a minute. I need to not schedule back-to-back meetings from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. every day, whatever. Like be kind to ourselves and be like, oh, you know what? I should leave myself some breaks in between where I could step outside and see the sun for a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, any last thing you want to say to anybody who made it all the way through our conversation?
No, I mean, I really think that taking the time to be present with ourselves and others is the key, to be honest. Like, and it's hard to do because we live in a culture that rewards us for being really busy. And, or whatever, makes it seem like that's somehow the thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think sometimes just taking 2 minutes and actually being in presence with another human is incredibly grounding and healing. So I would encourage people to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome. I really appreciate you taking the time too.